Hello, and welcome to our fourth and final day of College Week. This is one of my favorite weeks of the year. We hope that this week we have provided you with solid information and takeaways that are going to help your student navigate the college admissions process over the next couple of months or the next couple of years if you're a parent of a younger student. We've had some excellent questions every day. But we wanted to open it up this day on the last day to any questions about the college admissions process. It can be campus visits to recommendation letters. We have advice on how to approach it in the best possible way to minimize stress. That's always one of our goals, and maximize the potential of your students' college applications. If you have questions you would like to submit, you can go ahead and use the Q&A button on the bottom of the screen. We did learn this week that if you don't have the most recent version of Zoom, you may not see a Q&A button anymore. So if you don't see that as an option, you can also use the chat button to include your questions. And I will be monitoring both of them as we kind of navigate through the process. So, it looks like we have another response. We have a rising junior in here today as well. So again, feel free to either use the chat box or the Q&A box to answer questions. Before we get started, I wanted to quickly introduce myself in case you haven't been on the call this week. My name is Renee Minnich. I'm one of the college consultants at Educational Connections. Before becoming a college consultant, I worked in college admissions for over 32 years. And most recently, I spent 28 years at the Rochester Institute of Technology in upstate New York as a senior associate director of admission. Today, I have our test prep expert, Pete Pecoraro. That was a lot of P's. With us. He presented with me yesterday on testing. And Pete is an SAT and ACT tutor with Educational Connections, and he's also a former high school teacher. Thanks so much for joining us again today, Pete.
Thank you for having me back. I'm looking forward to questions which are always surprisingly in great depth and lead to good conversations. So we'll see
I
what the
agree.
folks have to ask.
Pete, how long have you been a test prep tutor and coach?
I've been tutoring the college entrance exams since 2014, so coming up
Mm-hmm.
on 12 years of doing that. So,
Wow.
and I think it's really good to have a question day like this because it's been a rapidly changing environment for
I
ACT and
agree.
SAT over the last 2 or 3 years, more so than in my lifetime. Both tests have changed. So I imagine there's a lot of questions around that. It's
I agree. I agree. And just a couple of notes before I introduce Jen. I do see someone raise their hand just to let you know that we won't be calling on anyone or putting anyone live on screen. So if you have a question, please go ahead and put it in either the Q&A box or in the chat box. And we'll be happy to address those questions in just a moment. I want to introduce my other colleague today, Jen Foldvary. She's also a college consultant at Educational Connections. She's a former associate director of admission at the University of Toledo. So welcome, Jen. Good to have you back today.
Thanks, Renee. Excited to be here. And
Good.
yes, I did work on the one side of the desk as an associate director of admission, but also I worked on the other side of the desk as a high school counselor for 15 years. So I've seen kind of both sides. And then, of course, just as we are also parents of students,
Yes.
of former high school students now. So we can also bring that parent perspective with us today as well.
Yeah, you certainly have three views of that, Jen. So
Yes.
that's amazing.
Yes.
Okay, before we get started on the Q&A, I just want to remind you that we have shared a lot during College Week this week, and I know sometimes navigating your child's journey to college can feel overwhelming or stressful. And if you're feeling confused about any of this, you certainly are not alone. I think a lot of parents feel that way, and we're here to help. If you want to learn more about our programs, you can go to the website here or call us and schedule an appointment with one of our educational consultants, Kathy, Jennifer, or Ann Stewart. They're all amazing. I just was talking to Jennifer this morning about a family we're working with, and they're all fantastic about learning about the student individually and then matching them up with the person who can best support them. Okay, with that, let's go to the Q&A and see. Looks like we have a few questions, and we also had some emailed into us, so hopefully we can get to those as well. Okay, let's start with, let's see. We'll go in the Q&A box first. I missed yesterday's webinar on testing. Okay, so I think this one's going to be for you, Pete. My student is planning on taking the ACT. Does she need to take the writing section just in case? I'm pretty confident that she won't apply to a school that requires it. So, Pete, what do you think about the writing section?
It's optional. So it's not mandatory in any way. And I can't think of like it's hard to come up with a reason to take it because you're writing essays for each of the schools that are going to address like why you want to attend, what programs you're interested in at that school.
Mm-hmm.
As a point of comparison, the SAT eliminated its writing part of the test like over a decade ago.
Yeah.
So it's a very first of all, it's 100% optional, and then it's hard to come up with a valid reason to even to exercise that option unless you could find a school that says they want to see it. I can't remember the last time I've ever run into that. Maybe you guys have, where a school wants to see the optional ACT writing, but it's
Right.
I can't remember the last time. I haven't run into that.
I feel the same way. I mean, given that colleges don't prefer the SAT over the ACT, there really is no preference there. I think it would be interesting if a school required the writing section because they would only get it from the student who took the ACT. So
Right.
I don't know that I've ever run into that or had a student that had to
Me
submit it.
neither.
Same, Jen?
I'm not either.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I'm not here
Hopefully
to
that
give advice to the ACT, but it would probably behoove them to kind of like sunset that
sunset that.
that
I would
particular
love to,
program.
yeah, I'd love to see some data on how many students actually do take it.
Yeah.
For them to still have it in there. Okay. Looks like we have another question in the Q&A. I'm old school, many of us are, and unless a student knows for certain that they want to be an engineer or a doctor, I think they should attend a liberal arts college to become a critical thinker, especially in the age of AI. It seems most high schools and colleges push for a major very early these days. And when looking at colleges, should my child look at a good general education or a school that specializes in his interests? And at this point, his interests are not well defined. So, Jen, how do you feel about tackling this one?
Whew, that's a big one. That's
It
a
is a
loaded
big one.
question. Lots going on there. You're going to probably hear me say this a lot today, and I know you will too, Renee. A lot of times the answers to these questions is it depends.
Hmm.
And so it really depends on the student. We talked a lot on Monday about fit, about the right fit for a student. So, it really depends on the type of student, that you have, what
Hmm.
they're kind of thinking about majoring or not, if they're not quite sure what they want to major in yet. I think, I think the parent is correct in saying that there's so much pressure now for students to choose a major, and students
Hmm.
feel like they need to know a major before they pick a college, and that's just not it's not feasible all the time. I mean, we're talking these
Right.
students are 16, 17, not I mean, usually it's before they even turn 18 before they're making these decisions. I certainly
Right.
didn't know what I wanted to do at that age. I
Hmm.
remember back in college, my counselor asking me, what do you want to major in? And I'm like, I don't know. You tell me. I don't know. I don't know what's out there.
Right.
There's probably something out there that's perfect for me, and I just don't know what it is. So, it's really hard to say. I think in that case, we start guiding students towards schools who are more specialized for, have good programs for students who are undecided in a major. So it
Hmm.
doesn't necessarily mean a specific type of college. I mean, there's a lot of different things that go into choosing a college for a student. So, we look at different factors like location and size and all these different things.
Right.
when we are, all these different factors when we are making a decision on a school. So we take that into
Right.
consideration as well. So it's really difficult to answer that question.
I agree. And I think, this is a trend that I've seen. I know when I went to college, similar to what you said, Jen, I would say probably 50 to 75% of my friends, we were all undecided. That was sort of the norm to go to college as an undecided student. And we have seen a shift away from that over the past few years. And for a few reasons. I think some high schools are doing a much better job right now exposing students to different types of things. I have a student who's doing a nursing program at our high school. I have a student who's taking engineering classes at our. So they are getting this exposure, which is helping some students find their passion earlier on, which I don't think was the case when I was in high school. On the flip side of that as well, I do feel that some colleges have either steered away from undecided programs or shortened them because as students are coming in as an undecided student, especially it used to be 2 years, we could stay undecided.
Right.
Um, Many of those students were not graduating on time. So then parents were upset because the graduation rates were dropping. Schools don't want lower graduation rates in 4 years. And so all of a sudden, it kind of started impacting a lot of things. So even some of the schools I know that used to have 2 year undecided programs, now it's just a year program. So utilizing that first year to really take classes of different things that you're interested in and try to explore those. So every undecided student's schedule should look different depending on, oh, I like this or I don't like that. But having a school that has a proper counseling or advisory program that will help the student make those decisions. Because just coming in and taking classes, okay, like where is this getting me? Like, having some sort of a program that helps the student navigate that really well. So I think it's both things. There's parents who are saying, I want my student in a program. If I'm going to spend the amount of money that I'm going to spend on a college education, I want them taking classes towards a specific career. Other families feel it's very important to do exploration, to have a well-rounded education, be able to take many liberal arts courses. So the priorities, just like location and size, I think the way you want to approach it is the same as well. Like every family is going to want something different, and then you just have to find schools that may suit that. It was interesting that this particular parent also mentioned AI, and I think this is a really big topic. I actually was having a conversation with someone this morning about AI because what they're finding is that students graduating from college right now are struggling a little bit to find jobs because instead of hiring entry-level jobs, they're hiring one person to run AI that will now tackle those jobs. So how do we make students as they're graduating have the marketable skills to be able to find job placement? And sometimes that's because they have done a little bit more in college, maybe like a co-op or an internship, some sort of experiential learning, so that they're not just coming out with a degree, but also some benefits or maybe even contacts from doing some of these
a network.
experience to get their foot in the door.
Right.
And what did you say, Pete? I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
And with those programs like an internship or a cooperative program,
Hmm.
building the network is
Yes. Yeah.
as vital as the subject matter know-how.
Right. I 100% agree. I 100% agree. So thank you for your insight on that, Jen and Pete. Okay. Here's another one. Thank you for the series. You're welcome. So thank you very much for joining us. Besides coaching, can you describe some options for students with executive function challenges who want to attend college? Given the course lead, I'm concerned about my child being able to complete college successfully. And are there specific colleges that are more supportive of students with these challenges? For instance, fewer courses in a semester and things like that. So yes, typically I work with many students who have need executive function support, who have ADHD, who have learning differences. So every student kind of brings something different to the table that they may need support with. And the level of support they need can also vary dramatically. So when I'm working with students who may need this type of support, when we're looking for colleges, we make sure to add that in as a piece of the puzzle. Okay, here's some college suggestions based on what you said you were interested in, but in addition to that, here's information on the level of support services that they may offer. So, and that may be something from a drop-in center as you need it to, something that's a little bit more scheduled to a full support system that really helps you not only with school, but also maybe navigating the social side of college and career exploration, all those things. So there really kind of runs the full gamut. And every school offers something different. I will say every school offers something. Every school has an academic support services office, but the level of support that they offer will vary. And whether or not that is an additional cost to tuition will also vary. When you get to some of the higher levels of support, it may have an additional fee. Oftentimes, those levels also are limited numbers. So it's another application process and making sure that you can secure that. But that is something that you certainly can navigate as part of the college admissions process to make sure not only the college is the right fit, but also the level of support is the right fit. I also have another student that I'm working with that needs executive function support. And although the college he was interested in did not have a lot of support, he is continuing on with an executive function coach outside of the college. So that's always a possibility as well, especially if they have somebody that they've been working with through high school. It might make sense to kind of remain consistent with that same person. Okay, Pete, thank you for answering the ACT question. Someone just said, we've got another one coming in here. Can you share some of your favorite websites or other free resources for students when researching colleges and universities that might fit their list if they're just starting the college search? I think this is really common. I'm familiar with Niche and US News and World Reports. I think, Jen, you and I both have feelings about both of those, so maybe we can talk about that. But I'm sure there's a lot of other useful sites that you can suggest as good matches. Do you want to start with that one, Jen?
Niche is probably one of my favorites. I use it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I use it a lot. It's great. I always caution people when you use these sites to double check with the actual college's website to make sure, because things are constantly changing with colleges. It's hard for us to keep up.
Right.
And this is what we do on a daily basis. So, great, use those programs. Like I said, Niche is my favorite. But I always double check with the college websites as well. We use a program, it's not free, but we use a program. I like to mention it because it's my favorite. We use a program through Educational Connections called College Planner Pro with our students, which is also very similar. It's nice to use these programs because when you go directly to a college website, it can be completely overwhelming. There's so much information on there. And every college presents their information differently on their websites. So, when you go to, you usually go to the admission page and you can find most of the information there, but it can be overwhelming to a student. So sometimes these sites like Niche, and it's actually spelled Niche, is really good because it kind of consolidates everything that you'd want to know as a high school student or a parent of a high schooler, so without all of the extras on the website. So right. I would say that's probably one of my favorites.
I agree. I also know like College Board has one, Big Future. Right. That's a good site to use. And I tell students, like, go to the college counseling or guidance office at your high school. I mean, most schools have Naviance or, something that they can start SCORE, which is spelled SCOIR.
Right.
Why does everyone have to spell things so strangely? But to utilize what you have in your high school, because that is something that can not only provide you with some opportunity to search colleges, but you can also see like scattergrams of students from your current high school, like where they've been admitted to school. And it kind of gives you information specific to the school that you're coming from as well, which is harder
admit rates, all that information. It's really helpful.
You can gain a lot of information from there. I'm always hesitant. I don't know about you, Jen, but I'm always hesitant to use US News and World Report as sort of a filter. I think that what they utilize, the factors they use to make those lists are not always the factors that are important to a family.
Right.
And I do think that some families will put a little bit too much emphasis on a ranking as opposed to a fit for their child. We talk about that a lot when I'm working with families, and saying, okay, let's not think about what you think is a good school or you've heard is a good school because
Yeah.
everybody's talking about it. Let's talk about what you're really looking for in a college and making sure it's a good fit for you. And I think that's something you and I navigate a lot as part of
A
working
lot.
with families, because they come to us with the same set of schools that everybody else is interested in. And sometimes too, I will have a family tell me right from the beginning, like, we're looking for a certain caliber of school. We want a reputation, we want a ranking. And if that's the case, for sure, like, we will put those schools on your list. But I also make sure that we're balancing that list out. And that may mean adding in some match and some likely schools that are not those top name schools, but can be a perfect fit for what the student is looking for.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's see. We've got lots of things in the chat, so I'm going to try to navigate through that. Can parents utilize Naviance? Jen, you might know this better, being working at a high school in the past. I know students get an account at the high school. Can parents utilize that or no?
I think it depends on the high school. If they turn like the high school will have to turn on that feature for parents, and usually the
Okay.
parents it's like a view only thing, so the students
Mm-hmm.
can move things around and change things and add things, but the parents can
Gotcha.
only it's like a view only. But
Okay.
if you're at a school that uses Naviance or Score or School Links or
Mm-hmm.
one of those programs,
Yes.
check with the counseling department or the school and ask them, is there a parent account that's available?
Okay.
Because most of those programs do have a parent account
Mm-hmm.
associated with it, just like our College Planner Pro does.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I was just going to say that's one of the things I like College Planner Pro added last year, a parent login, which I think is really nice to be doing some research in there as well. Okay. We did have a question just in case anyone didn't see it about if the recordings were going to be sent out. And yes, everyone will get a copy of the recordings for the full week tomorrow. So we had a follow-up question, Jen, from the conversation we had a little bit earlier. And it is, would it be better to wait that 1 year and be undecided and then choose or switch majors? So let's talk about the ease of switching majors. Maybe we can make this a little bit broader even, because
That's
I
tough
do get a
too.
lot of questions, and I'm sure you do too, of students saying, I know getting into the architecture program at this school is hard, so I'm going to go in as an undecided student and
Right.
transfer in. So I usually tell students a couple things. Let's start with undecided. So if a
Right.
student truly is undecided, they should go undecided. And there are some colleges, honestly, there are also colleges that don't want you to pick a major your first year. There are
Right.
some that will ask you not to, and then everybody picks their second year. But when you're filling out the common application, I would say a pretty high number of them will have, let's select a major as you apply. But I have seen multiple things. So one, select a major. Number two, there are colleges that'll say, we have an undecided program. Great. They call it undecided, exploratory, that lots of different terms
All
for it.
different
Everybody has a
names.
different name. So those are great programs. I have also seen a trend, and you probably have seen it as well, where colleges are now offering undecided programs, but that have focus. So maybe an undecided engineering program or an undeclared science program. So you don't know specifically what you want, but you're kind of getting in that direction. So you take some of the foundation courses for that, and then we'll decide on a specific after your second year.
Right.
Any inputs there, Jen?
No, you took the words right out of my mouth.
Amazing. And when students decide to go to college in a major that is not their first choice, so let me address that, like architecture example I gave you. I usually tell students, if you're going to enroll in a college in a program that is your alternate choice, you should plan on graduating in that major. You
Definitely.
should not have the plan that you're going to internally transfer. You should feel it's a possibility that you can internally transfer. And I see this a lot with limited enrollment programs. Like, nursing, physician assistant, architecture, these programs where there's a limited number of spaces available. And so what happens is each college will fill their class. For example, okay, physician assistant program, 32 spaces, they have 32 students coming in. The next year, the sophomore year, there is only spaces available if someone leaves the program. So it's not like these extra spaces open up the next year. You might have one or two spots available. There might be 30 students from that college trying to internally transfer, and there's external applicants too. So the competition is very high. So you really want to know going in that it might be possible, but it should not be your plan. Okay, let's see. I just want to make sure I covered everything. Okay, I see maybe a follow-up question here for you, Pete. So the person who asked about the SATs and the ACTs earlier, the question is, where do they start? So far, the SAT and ACT are slightly above mid-range. She has no clubs or school activities, and she is autistic and ADHD. I don't know if this is a follow-up question to the testing or about where to do a search, but I will say when we get into these specific questions, I really think it's best to schedule a meeting with someone and really talk through what you might need for your college. And I know as a college consultant, I will do consultations with families occasionally if they're not quite ready to decide with college counseling. During that time, I really don't typically go into all of these specifics, but I can at least talk a family through the counseling and the options that I can help them with. Do you feel the same, Jen?
Definitely. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I would say,
All right.
in kind of from the test prep point of view with that person's question, it sounds like they've taken the SAT and ACT and established
Mm-hmm.
that these are mid-level scores.
Yes.
I would be most interested in seeing how the sub-skill categories underneath those composite scores
Mm-hmm.
to help a person like that maybe just decide which test might be more advantageous. So
Yes.
which only serves to corroborate your point that it requires kind of like a more extensive meeting. You have to sit down and really pour over how did the math go? How did the subcomponents of reading and writing go?
Right.
It would be a part of a more data driven quantitative discussion.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I agree. I love data. I love going back and looking so I can kind of show families, what the school has done in the past or what averages are in the past. I think that's really helpful to them. So
Yeah.
I do see a note earlier on. It looks like the person who sent that message in has attended a few of the sessions this week and found them helpful, which is great to hear. Thank you for that feedback. And it is a grandmother of a 16-year-old rising senior who's taken honors courses and done well, but is kind of taking a dive a little bit academically, doing a little bit worse this year. And we do see that. I know, Jen, you and I have worked with students whose grades are inconsistent. So I think it even highlights a little bit more of having that one-on-one conversation. When I'm working with a student who has had grades that have been a little bit inconsistent, but they do have the academic ability, it's really having those conversations about okay, how will we explain this on the application? And also just me learning like why it happened. And then also connecting those pieces together of, okay, the grades have dipped now. Let's think about what we need to do between now and applying so that we can try to recover a little bit from that or show a college that you are academically prepared to head to college. Okay, I have another one. If a student is entering 10th grade and is interested in medicine, is a competitive swimmer, and a lifeguard, what guidance on making a college list and what scores do you need on the SAT? So, Jen, do you want to start with the college list part?
Sure. College list. Okay. So that's a lot of different questions asked in one.
Yeah.
Starting in 10th grade, and it's still pretty early, which is great. I
Hmm.
love that they're already thinking about a college list. A couple things I would do with a 10th grader, rising 10th grader or rising 11th grader, would be let's focus on what we can do with our extracurriculars first. So I love the lifeguard thing, and I don't know what the other one was, but they're already kind of headed in the right direction as
Yeah,
far as
competitive swimmer. Hmm.
Okay, as far as the lifeguard thing, definitely. But doing some job shadowing, things like that, doing some things to support them as they're, going through their major. As far as building a college list, we can start looking at schools that have strong programs in, they said pre-med.
Yes.
Is it pre-med? Yep. So pre-med and just to make it known, pre-med is not a major, it's a track, it's a program that you take. So most students choose biology or bioengineering or chemistry or one of those different areas to major in. So, but again, yes, let's look at the schools that have excellent biology programs or good pre-med tracks. But again, it's about the fit for the student as far as the school goes. Now, obviously, we know we want to pick a school that has those programs, but again, we want to make sure that it's the right fit for a student. So whether it's a small school or a large school, or it's close to home or it's far away from home, it's having a conversation with the student. Also, one thing I like to mention just to families when they're visiting campuses is, as long as you're taking the trip to visit a campus, there's a lot of times when college admission offices will be able to help you set up an additional visit with somebody or additional appointments with somebody from the academic program. So you can learn more about the program at the college. So if you start early enough, you have a long runway, lots of time to plan for this, to do some research at some of these different schools. So, maybe just start with some schools a little bit closer to home that you're more familiar with. And get on the campus, visit the campus, see if it's the right fit for the student overall, but then maybe meet with somebody from the biology department or the pre-med, just to find out a little bit more about the program and get their feet wet with that, ask questions and things like that.
I agree. And I think that's all fantastic information. And as far as what score do they need on the SAT, that number will vary depending on the college that you're looking at. Every school has a different set of
Threshold.
scores. Yeah, threshold of what is
Okay.
acceptable. And, it's not blanket across the board. And even when you're looking at a specific program, the middle 50% or the average SATs or ACTs for one school for a biology program can be completely different than another school. So, my recommendation is always, as we talked about yesterday, Pete, is to everyone should take the SAT or ACT at least once.
Which
So
ones?
you have a set of scores. Some schools are test optional, so that don't have to submit scores, but you should be in the driver's seat. You should have a score and be making that decision about whether you submit them or not submit them. And then once you have a college list built, you can look at their average SAT or ACT scores, and that would give you a better indication of what it may take for a student to have those scores to be admitted.
Absolutely.
But go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. I think of this as a mosaic. It's a mosaic of factors that are involved, even at the
Hmm.
score level. Every institution has kind of like, you know, will publish or let the general public know what it takes to what they're looking for score wise. That varies
Right.
so widely from school to
Hmm.
school and from program to program within a school. So
Hmm.
it's hard to say. I say, well, you need to be shooting for a 1400 or a 30 or
Right.
whatever it might be. You're thinking of kind of like elite numbers.
Hmm.
There's just too much variance there. There's many schools, which is a good thing. But so
Right.
there are many options. But
Hmm.
once you drill down to your list that seem to be
Hmm.
have like a strong medicine component, then look to the institutions what they might be seeking score wise, and then
Right.
that becomes your goal.
Hmm.
And one more thought on this: if that person's planning on taking the ACT, then you should definitely be taking the optional science. And
Right.
in a case like that, it
Definitely.
wouldn't be optional because
Right.
it's a science related discipline.
Correct. I agree. And the other thing I think you kind of have to go back to is the transcripts and the day-to-day grades and the course selection and the rigor. That truly is the foundation of the pyramid. If you've seen any of the webinars I've done before, I show a pyramid often where like grades and programs and course rigor, that is the foundation. So a student needs to have shown a college that they can be academically successful in the program there. And I think sometimes students forget that piece of the puzzle, that colleges are not just looking to, oh, we want to just be really selective, or we don't. Many times that not the highly selective schools, but the moderately selective to less selective schools, what they are truly doing in looking at your application is, do we feel the student is academically ready for college? They don't want to set a student up for success. So first you have to show them on the transcript that you have taken the courses, you've taken rigor if you can, advanced courses possible, things like that, and done well. Then you add in the SAT or ACT component. And the testing can play sort of two different roles depending on what your transcript looks like. So if you've done well and have done well on testing, then it's like a nice second addition to, okay, here's another layer that they're showing us they can be successful. That's cool on the flip side. Say a student has a transcript and it's not as strong as they hoped, but they've done well on testing. That would be a way for a student to show kind of a positive turn on their application, that they do have the academic potential. I've read many applications like this, where a student maybe has not done as well, particularly in maybe 9th and 10th grade. Then they're kind of coming into their own junior year, and then they submit a strong test score. I'm putting those two things together and saying, I think the student can do it. I think that they have the ability to do it. So those test scores can really be a nice addition to supplement, depending on what your transcript looks like. Okay, thanks for the good information. What was the other website with college information that you mentioned? Score. Oh, it's SCOIR. They have it spelled a little bit differently in here, but yes, SCOIR. I actually went to a conference once and they were there, and I went right up to the table and I said, "Can you tell me how to pronounce yours?" So that I was saying it correctly. And she was like,
that program is usually done through a high school, though. I'm not sure
Yes.
that they can access that. It's not one of the free
I
programs.
agree. I agree. School Links, Naviance, Score, those are the ones we probably see the most. A lot of the Virginia schools moved to School Links this past year. Those are probably the most common, but those are also really, they're not just navigation tools for college search. They're also the electronic system that the school utilizes to transmit all of the transcripts and recommendations and things for a student from their high school to Common App. So it's like a multi-use thing. But if you have a college counseling office or a guidance office, they would be able to provide you with what the school can offer. And I unfortunately find that many high schools sort of wait to have these conversations until either the end of junior year or the beginning of senior year, like not having it early enough to utilize what's available. And I do think that is hard because that summer in between junior and senior year, I know, Jen, you and I utilize that like this is our time. Like we're getting a lot done, as much as we can for college applications. And that's a point in time when students are not in school. So the college counselors don't have the benefit of kind of working with the students during that challenging time.
It's the only time when they're not distracted by sports and school and everything else. So it's such a great time to be working on all of that.
I love when school lets out and I can start meeting with students during the day. When they're not in school. And I typically meet with students on nights and weekends, which is completely fine. But I know, I'm sure you do as well. Sometimes we meet with them at 7:00 and you can just they're exhausted from the day.
Right.
That is so true.
Yeah.
They're eating their dinner while we're talking.
Oh my gosh, all the time. Yes.
It's fine. I'm okay with it.
I totally agree. I'm always like, do whatever you need to do. Yeah. But, I feel for them. So when school lets out, like I'm in it, like, okay, let's meet during the day. You're less competing priorities. And that's really my favorite time. All right. I want to pop over the Q&A. We did get a question in the chat, but I will go back to that, but I don't want to miss this one. The other day, you mentioned that a smaller college was probably a better fit for students with ADHD learning differences. Can you talk more about that issue? Also, are there any tips for checking the level of support at a particular school? So I can't remember if something you or I mentioned about a smaller school being a better fit. And, I usually will tell students when you're looking at the size of the school, particularly if you have ADHD or learning difference, don't just look at the size of the student body, look at the classroom size. That's usually my advice. Is that classroom size what you need to feel like you can be successful? Are you okay in a classroom of 150 students? Or do you feel you need a classroom of 25 where you can raise your hand and ask questions? That really is probably, for me, the most important piece that I recommend students. We talk about what their classroom size looks in like in high school. How has that worked for them? And what do they feel like they could manage in college? Do you have any different advice for that, Jen, or feel the same way?
No, I feel about the same way. And again, it's up to the particular student. I think we're going back to we're talking about the student that I was talking about on Monday, where he was looking at these larger public universities,
Oh, right.
and he has ADHD, and had the diagnosis, and his mom and I had the conversation that we feel like he could benefit from maybe a smaller type classroom and a smaller setting.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
with these smaller private schools, not even necessarily a private school, but these smaller schools, they have, less students that they have to take care of. So there's more support there for
Right.
students. So a lot of times that they tend to go in that direction. I'm not saying that they have to, but for this particular student I was working with, yes, it was the right fit for him to move to something smaller. And he
Okay.
didn't realize that until after we went on and did some visits.
Right.
So that's why that's so important.
And then the question about tips for checking the level of support at a particular school. Honestly, I just go to the website and I usually put
Right.
in the search bar academic support services.
Yep.
And that 99% of the time will get me to where I want to go. Everyone
Right.
calls that office something different. It's never consistent, but usually kind of utilizing that term will will get you to a place where they have some colleges have amazing websites with so much information out there. The other thing you could do is try to go to the admissions website and navigate to like prospective student. And sometimes the admissions website will have links there too to get you to, because it's a common question. But we'll have some links to get you to the place that will provide you with the information that you need.
And that's another opportunity if you're going to visit the campus, see if you can set up a meeting with somebody from the support services center as well to learn what
Hmm.
types of support can you offer my students.
Right,
As long as
right.
you're making this big investment, you're making this, definitely. And most colleges are very, especially in the admission office, they want you to come. They want you to come visit the campus. So when
Hmm.
I worked at, the University of Toledo, I remember people calling, "Hey, can I meet with somebody from the engineering department? I want to learn." Of course, let me see what I
Yes.
can do. And we would work on that and we want to roll off the red carpet for anybody that wants to come and visit. So
Right.
don't be afraid to ask to find out something. I mean, the worst they can say is no.
I will say I worked on three different college campuses. Every single college campus, every person that works there because they want to help students. I mean, you really are inserting yourself into a place where everyone is there to help you.
Right.
The one thing that kind of trips things up is that it's different than high school where someone's not checking on you. Many
Right.
times students need to say, I need help. And that is, learning that skill and saying, okay, I need help and knowing where to go to get that support, I think is important. So when students may need support, and even if it's a drop-in support, whatever it may be, I always say before you go to college, you select a college or to put a deposit in, make sure you know what's available, where that office is, how to access it. So you may not need it all the time, but you want to have it available. I know when my son went to college, there were some support services I wanted him to know where they were. And I remember saying to him, you may not need your toolbox every day, but you have to know where it is. So if you need a tool, you can reach in and get it, and he was like, okay, so we talked through that and I made sure like where physically is the office on campus? What is the website? Can you send any, like those types of things? We made sure that he was comfortable with that before he started.
A lot of
Okay.
colleges do a nice job of that too, like at orientation,
I
at college
agree.
orientation.
Yes.
They will
Yes.
share that information with students and parents. This is where you can find this. And
Yes.
we just went to orientation with my son, who's starting as a freshman in the fall, and they were great about it.
Good.
So I think
Yeah,
colleges are getting better and better with that over the years, for
I
sure.
agree. I agree. Okay, we're wrapping up on time. We have just two questions in here, so I want to address those quickly and before we sign off. First of all, once someone asked by meeting, are we talking Zoom meetings only? And yes, I only meet with students by Zoom, and I believe Jen and Pete, we are Zoom meeting only that we meet with students. We don't do anything in person. And then within this one is 19,000 students large. For me, I put 19,000 students sort of in the medium category.
Right.
And I have worked at a college that had 19,000 students, and it to me was a medium-sized school with a small school feel. It's the classroom sizes were still pretty small. So I think that size is where it can feel like a big school with lots of opportunities, but also feel like a small school, depending on how that school is structured. Okay, last questions. Can you say a few words about how to deal with anxiety and emotional highs and lows once the application process is over? Oh, yeah. And students are awaiting news and dealing with rejections and wait lists and acceptances. Um, Jen, do you want to start?
That's tough.
It is tough. I mean, we've done it as counselors and we've done it as parents too.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
Um, as far as, emotions and all of that, I mean, I'm willing to talk it through with my students. We always
Yes.
do. We talk about how this is not just happening to them, it's happening to every other student.
Right.
We talk
Right.
about, let's just say they get on a wait list, like they find out from a college that they were deferred admission or they were on a wait
Mm-hmm.
list, especially deferred, if they get deferred. I tell them deferred does not mean denied. Okay. You
Right.
still have to understand that you're still being considered by this college. So don't look at it as a rejection. There's so many students applying to so many colleges now, and the application process has gotten simpler over the years. So,
Mm-hmm.
the common application, it has made it so simple for students to apply that more and more kids are applying. And so it has gotten more competitive.
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that the college didn't want you. They defer and deny so many students every year that they wish they could
Mm-hmm.
take. It's just,
Right.
and I try to talk that through with my students. Um,
Yeah, I
and
agree. I
sometimes
think we have, oh, go ahead. Sorry, I thought
I
you
was
were.
going to just say, and if we get to that point where they are deferred or they're waitlisted, we have a plan in place because we have met
Correct.
early on. We have, our balance list, so we know that we've got some schools with other options of schools that we know that they've already been interested in, that they're happy to attend. So we have a plan. We come up with the plan. Okay, we say that we're going to go ahead and enroll in this school. And then if we hear back from this school that you were deferred, then we maybe switch gears at that point. So we talk it through.
I
It's
agree. And that's what I was going to chime in and say was talking about your list. So part of the reason of having a balanced list is making sure you have schools in the match and likely category. So you do have options.
options.
That truly is really an anxiety reducer and a stress reducer that, I know these schools that I'm really interested in and may be a reach for me, or you may feel they're a match and you're still waitlisted because schools have become very competitive. But I have likely schools, or they used to be called safety schools, on my list that I am really confident I'm going to get offers to. You want to make sure that you have options. I met with many students last year as decisions were coming out, and it's like a roller coaster. Like this day, I'm upset because I get this. The next day, I'm happy because I get this. And, trying to then you go to school the next day and you hear everybody else that got their decision and you start
Yes.
comparing yourself to everyone. Why them and not me? And I think that is really a tough process, but I am all about two things. One, planning ahead and having a balanced list so you're going to have options. And two, having open and honest conversations early on. So I would much prefer to have a conversation with a student in, now, May of junior year and say, I know you have your heart set on this school, but let me explain to you why it is a reach school for you. Let me show you the average CPAs, the average SATs, their admit rate. So they are going into the process with realistic expectations. I would
Right.
much rather have that difficult conversation now than have them be crushed later on because they didn't know what to expect. So, I think that will help because as they go into the application process, they feel more confident because they have looked at all of this data. They understand what buckets their schools fall in, and how likely it is to be admitted. And then it's not as much of a shock or is not as jarring when they start getting those decisions. But there's decisions that surprise me every year. I'm sure the case with you too, Jen. Like, I think it's
Yep,
going to go one way
absolutely.
in both directions. Some
In
students I
both
think may be
directions.
admitted and they're denied, and some I think are going to get denied and they're admitted.
Right.
Because the applicant numbers at schools are just skyrocketing right now. So there's a little bit of uncertainty there, no matter how much data or knowledge we have about what's been done in the past. Okay, I think we've answered everything. I'm just going to put this slide back up quickly in case anyone has interest in scheduling a call with one of our educational specialists, or working with us as college consultants or test prep tutors. We have a great team of consultants and we have a great team of test prep coaches as well. Thank you everyone for joining us today and this week. It's been wonderful. I appreciate all the questions we received, and I appreciate you, Jen and Pete, for joining me and sharing your wealth of knowledge as well. Always great to work with you and hear everything. I learn something from both of you every single time I present with you. So thank you for sharing that. All right. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.